Hello, everybody. So we're gonna give everybody opportunity to jump in. Welcome to Office Hours with the NOSA Group. My name is Shamika, and I'm going to be opening up Office Hours this Wednesday. So if you have any questions, we're also on YouTube today because it's been some time. So if you have any questions on YouTube, feel free to drop them. We have a couple of people jumping in, and if you're having difficulties, drop in the chat box what's going on. Sometimes your volume is not connected, and that might be the issue. But we're going to give everybody a chance to jump in. It's about 12:10, and then we get started. But while we wait for people to jump in, I always like to jump into the group or my emails and answer a couple of questions that have been within the group that I think is a good kind of starting point to start our office hours today. So give me 1 second. Um, and the question that I am going to talk about is actually about virtual assistants. So if you're working with a virtual assistant, which I know a lot of people do, feel free to chime in. All right. So the question was around when using VA services for cold calls. What is a reasonable number of calls the person should do per day? So I've shared before about my experience with the virtual assistant and how that worked out. And we've actually worked with a couple of different virtual assistants, but I had a couple of people respond to that question and give their take. And some people said 50 calls a day, 100 calls a day, and gave a couple of different numbers. But there's a couple of things that you want to take into consideration when you're assigning virtual assistants that particular type of task. Is one, how comfortable they are with doing it, right? So you want to make sure it's a good fit. Have they done it before, which is always nice. If you're going to provide them a script, if you're going to have them look for the clients, or if you're going to provide them a list of clients. And then the final thing, which is probably the most important thing, is how you evaluate how effective they were, right? So for some people, they may give you a spreadsheet, say, place these calls this week or these days or for your hours, and then kind of have a column in that spreadsheet that gives like updates to say, hey, I called, emailed, no response, talked to somebody, sent over a contract, those types of things. One, I would encourage people that are using spreadsheets to kind of make it easier on your VA by creating like drop-down options where the VA would select different responses from the calls. So it may select no answer, left voicemail message, sent over contract, so on and so forth. But what I would like to talk about with you guys today is more of how effective or ineffective that type of cold calling is. So I posted in the group about kind of where you should spend your money and what makes sense, and kind of growing as an agency owner. And when we talk about cold calling, I'm talking about like traditional pick up the phone and you just talk to someone to kind of get their business. I shared that we need to think about being more tech savvy, more forward thinking when we're doing those types of things. And one of the reasons that I mentioned it is because sometimes, myself included, you don't realize that you're working harder than you need to. So there's lots of systems and products that you can use out there to assist with stuff like that, such as a CRM. But from the interaction with the client, I encourage people to use resources like LinkedIn, lead generation to actually foster those relationships. So when I talk about evaluating how effective a VA is with doing that is that having a VA call, get a contract, or potentially get it sent over, and maybe get it signed is one thing, but establishing a relationship with multiple potential clients is something different. So if a VA, hey Catherine,
Uh,
uh, okay, I see you got on. So if a VA is doing it for say a couple of weeks, so they're doing a couple of cold calls for a couple of weeks, and they're not getting any answer, which happens because you can do your cold calls yourself and not get a response. Is that a way? How can you evaluate the success of something like that? So that's why in the post, when I responded to the post, and I'm gonna let you ask your question, Catherine, um, is that you want to kind of think about what makes sense, what works, because they made contact potentially, but you want to create a business relationship. So even if they don't need your services now, they may in the future. So you want to create a way for you to identify them as a potential client or a client that you contacted in the past or a client that's only interested in XYZ, so that when you reach out again or if you have something or can offer them something that meets their needs, you kind of gathered all of that information. So when I responded and when I talk about cold calling, which I'll talk about later on at some point, you want to think about that in that a VA can place a call, connect with a client or potential client, and get some information. But it's more beneficial to establish a relationship in a warm setting like LinkedIn and stuff like that, so that even if they're not interested in working with you at that particular time, you're still kind of connected with their needs, you're connected with the organization, you see different changes and things like that that may be happening, and then you're able to, you know, reconnect, reach out again if something changes. So, kind of closing that loop or kind of operating it as more of a circle or circular relationship versus a more direct transactional relationship is important. And in those instances, having someone do the cold calls, you only have a transactional situation. They place a call, they extend a contract or not. But you want to create more circular relationships where you're still staying connected to the organization just in case their needs change, or there may be other opportunities for you to provide different staffing services, non-healthcare related staffing services to that particular organization. So something to think about. I'm doing another series like I did on the how to get started on how to fire your VA, and it's not going to be what you think it is. And I'll talk more about stuff like that. But let's get on to office hours. We have a couple more people jumping in, so we're going to get started. We're a little bit running late. So, Catherine, I see you have a question. Feel free to ask. Office hours are super informal, and it's just an opportunity for you guys to ask questions that may be more specific to your situation or that haven't been answered within the group. So, feel free to take yourself off of mute and chime in.
oh, hi.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
Diane.
So
Good.
at this point, I don't have a question. Just here to kind of learn, and if I have a question along the way, I will ask.
Definitely. Perfect. Hi, Danny. Is it Danny?
Yeah, Danielle, but my nickname is Danny.
Okay. You got a question?
I don't have a question, just want to listen.
Okay. All right. So I was talking a little bit about virtual assistants earlier. Um, let's see. If you guys don't have any questions, I think I get a little bit of feedback. Let's see if we have any more questions in the chat. 1 second. Let's take a quick look. Um, so sometimes I pull questions from the group, and then sometimes I pull questions from you guys. So here's a good question. So I'm gonna drop this question, and like I said, if you have questions, feel free to chime in. We're super informal with the office hours. Okay. So this other question is how to prepare for conferences or know what conferences might be a benefit to attend, and kind of making a decision. So just like any industry, our industry, the healthcare staffing industry, has lots of different conferences throughout the year. And during our last office hours, that was one of the questions around, hey, do you invest? Does everybody on your team go? Should it be a solo situation? What's the best strategy on managing conferences? And I will say this time around August into the fall, early winter is really when I go out and attend a lot of conferences and when a lot of industry specific conferences happen. So, as some of you guys may know, we had NOSACON in August, at the end of August in Atlanta. It went well, and I'll give more updates about that later. So, that was a conference a lot of NOSAs attended, and it was really an opportunity because it was our first for NOSAs to connect with each other, as well as get education, networking. We had a lot of meet and greet types of events over that weekend. But as we move into the fall, some conferences that some of the NOSAs, as myself, will be participating in will be the following. So TravCon, and TravCon is really great for NOSAs because it's a healthcare travelers conference. It's also AKA known as travcon.org. And it's where most healthcare traveling professionals go to get information about what's happening in the industry, as well as connect with new agency or agency partners. So traditionally in the past years, there's been close to 1,500 healthcare traveling professionals who go, lots of agency representation there, lots of information and breakout sessions about things happening in the industry around taxes and how to get started in the industry if you're a new healthcare traveling professional, how to do housing and different things that are specific to those who travel. One of the reasons I think it's a nice idea for NOSAs to attend is because not every nurse or healthcare professional in the group has traveled. And within our healthcare space, we have a couple of different layers. So you have staff, then you have like agency workers, and then you have those who exclusively travel. So thankfully, I've had the opportunity to do all three, and they're kind of subsets of the industry and operate differently. So like what they're looking for, their expectations, how they work, how they want to be scheduled, and things of that nature are all different based on kind of where they fit in. So going there as a NOSA is really nice because it allows you to get exposure. So you can get exposure. One, you can exhibit your agency, which is always a great idea. Or two, you can actually go in as a healthcare professional and get a better understanding of how the industry works. I tell people travelers are different than agency staff that are local. They're different than staff or permanent staff. And their expectations and things that they look for or that are important to them are different as well. So you want to kind of be enmeshed to some extent in the community so that you don't have to make the mistakes and kind of go through trial and error in those types of scenarios with them because, hey, maybe location is more important to them than pay. A great example would be like Hawaii. Everybody in that travel space knows that Hawaii isn't, or didn't used to be, but isn't the highest paying assignment many times. But because it's Hawaii, a lot of people want to go. So you want to kind of have that understanding too, because you want to make sure that you're having the right type of conversation when you're talking to applicants. So next, Staffing World. So Staffing World will be in October. It's hosted by the American Staffing Association, and it'll be towards the end of October, and it is actually about everything staffing. So Staffing World is exactly what it sounds like. So it's not healthcare specific, but there are alignments into the healthcare space. So there have some of the breakout sessions and some of the workshops are specific to trends happening in healthcare, what we're seeing healthcare staffing look like in the future and things like that. But overall, Staffing World is exactly that. So like everything in the staffing space, whether it's technology staffing or administrative or warehouse, they'll all kind of be a part of this Staffing World conference happening in October. They have a lot of pre-conference stuff as well as during the conference, they have a lot of breakout sessions. They have a lot of networking types of sessions and activities, speakers, as well as you get the benefit for those of you guys who are members of the American Staff Association to get the discount. So if you're a member of the association, you get discounted services and access to events. If not, you pay the non-member price. You can also attend as well and participate either in the conference activities or pick and choose. So that's one of the things that I do like about Staffing World is that they do offer more of a la carte service when it comes to attending their conference, because it allows you to kind of pick where you want to be. For instance, I plan on being on the front end of the conference, so I'll attend activities that'll apply through that. So Danny, you can just, I'm going to leave the website, American Staffing Association. And if you don't have your business up and running yet, I think they have another level of membership for that. But for the most part, it's an investment. So it's, I'm gonna get you the full site. There is a cost involved, but you get access to a lot of information. And I tell people it's because they offer non-member rates for the same services and stuff. It's worth kind of coming in initially as a non-member until you're ready to commit, or that your agency is open and you're ready to commit the investment to be a part of the association. So they do offer non-member access. So that's definitely a segue to attend some of their webinars or any of their events that they may be hosting. And many times they also have things at a state level or regional level. So they have activities, events, and things like that, which are also great just to kind of connect with people. Even if you're just primarily working in healthcare staffing, for most states, if your specialty is healthcare staffing, you're not boxed in to just doing healthcare staffing. So if you want to do other areas or different other industries to staff in, it's worth exploring, and this is a great association to be connected to make that happen. So I hope that answers your question. Perfect. So the last one is the staffing industry analyst. And this one is more of your executive level. So we kind of walked up a tier. So TravCon is really traveler, employee, applicant specific, but great opportunities to connect in that space. And then Staffing Road is more staffing industry specific, and it's more about like the industry as a whole and changes and things like that that's associated. And then SIA, in my opinion, is more of your executive level. So it's probably more geared towards your established agency owners that may be looking to do more, nationwide, that may be looking to do other things in the industry. Their healthcare summit, which is going to be in Houston in November, is specific to staffing. They do more trend and analysis of the industries, what's happening, what's expected to happen in the future. And then they also have pockets of their organization that looks at things from a global level and just not kind of like US. So the Healthcare Staffing Summit, this will be my first time in attendance this year in Houston. A lot of people have attended, but again, you want to kind of think about where you are in your organization. So this particular conference isn't something that I would encourage people to do as a new agency owner. A lot of the people that attend either provide services to agencies on a higher level or on an executive level, and or are an executive in their organization. So you want to, it's a different type of conversation, and it's mostly based on, it's just it'll be a different outlook. So it'll talk about things happening in the industry. And like I said, I'll share that as well. And again, just like with Staffing World, you get access through membership, but they do offer non-membership options. You're able to let's get to the staffing conferences. Attend workshops and webinars and things like that that they're having on both levels. So it's not something where you're boxed into getting the membership. And for some people, it's a good fit or not, kind of based on what you plan to do with your business in the future. So okay. Wait, let me try this again. So a couple of things to do as far as planning. So it's travcon.org. It's not popping up. Okay. A couple of things to think about when you say like, and then there's lots of other different types of events throughout the year. There's events related to administrators of facilities, long-term care, American Nurses Association. So there's lots of other events. I tell people this is the way that I go about kind of planning it out. So like I had planned last year to attend all of the conferences that I mentioned. One, you want to budget for it. So if you're thinking about, hey, well, 2024 or 2023, or even this year, you want to see how much the costs are. So for the most part, year over year, the costs for all the conferences that I mentioned haven't changed too much. The price may have changed $20, $40, $50. So even if you look at this year's prices, it'll look very similar as next year's prices. Two, you want to think about the convenience. So like how convenient it is to where you're located, because you also want to take into account those costs. Three, you want to think about, is it something that you want to attend, or is it something that you want to have people on your team attend? And that's kind of where it depends. So in situations where you have a team, things like TravCon are good for team members to go to because it helps them when they're communicating with potential employees or potential or applicants that reach out, or people that reach out who are interested in that type of staffing, like travel staffing. Something like a staffing world is good for like your operational managers to attend, because that kind of touches on like that day-to-day stuff, that human resources, payroll, policies and procedures types of things within your business. And then of course, SIA, in my opinion, is more of the owners, COOs, CFOs to attend, because that's kind of the audience that you'll be in line with. And then that way, your conversations, your interactions about what your agency is doing can connect on that level as well. So something to think about too is, if you're going to join SAA, for instance, anyway, then join first, then attend the conference, because you want to get the biggest bang, biggest benefits. So you get a discount for being a member. So I would encourage people to join first, then attend the conference. Same thing kind of applies with TravCon. So with TravCon, there isn't a membership, but once you attend 1 year, you get typically a discounted rate for returning. So they do give discounted rates for returning attendees. The other thing with TravCon too is you want to think about, do you want to exhibit? Because that's kind of a different piece of the conference. So in kind of planning, you want to take that and all the costs involved with setting up an exhibit space there as well. And that kind of applies to all of the conferences. I think all of them have exhibit space. So you want to think about where you want to fit in and then kind of plan accordingly. One thing I encourage people to do is attend something. A lot of organizations offer virtual because of COVID. They still are continuing to offer virtual conferences, which of course are substantially more affordable, but really consider attending something to get more education from the professionals and experts that do these things on a regular basis, so that you're able to kind of stay up to speed on what's happening and kind of the conversations that are being had around the industry that you're either a part of or looking to be a part of. And then also, that might be a great first stepping point, that if they offer a virtual version, that you come as a virtual version, and then later you plan to go to the conference in person. And then think about what your return on investment is. What do you want to get from attending? Do you want to network? Do you want to get applicants? Do you want to get partnership opportunities? Do you want to make specific people? So those are all things that you want to think through, write down as you're kind of preparing to think about attending conferences on a national or local level. What's in it for you? So that even if you spend, let's say it's like $1,000, your return on investment will come from whatever you're looking to get from going for that monetary value. So definitely think through that. And then when you get to a conference, I tell people have a strategy. All the conferences that I mentioned, including NOSACOM, a lot going on, but you can't do everything. So if you can bring a partner and they can attend some of the things, and then you guys kind of powwow over breakfast the next day, that's always a great idea. But if that's not the case, then hit the things that are important to you, connect with the people that you want to connect with initially, and then save the opportunity to do something different for the next occasion. So that's a little bit of my take on conferences. Like I said, for me, for our industry, it's definitely what I would consider conference season. And you don't have to go to the national conferences like the ones that I mentioned before, but you can also do some of the local or regional conferences as first starts or kind of first stepping stones. But definitely go out there and get more education and information about our industry and some of the changes that are happening or that will happen as we go into 2023. So, any questions, ladies? Well, I'm going to check one more page to see if we have any questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up for you guys. As I mentioned, so for this particular month, we did office hours back to back. So we did it last Wednesday, and we're doing it again today, but we won't have office hours next week. And then as we go into October, we'll open up the office hours bi-weekly. So every other Wednesday. So that if you do have questions, what I'm going to do is if you do have questions that you want me to discuss during office hours, email them to me ahead of time, and then I'll use that as our intro question for the next office hours. And then that way you can check it out on our YouTube channel to get the answer to the question, just in case you can't attend the live office hours here. So let's take one more peek. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions, so I'll drop the YouTube channel here. So if you want to catch the office hours moving forward, you can and see kind of people's questions, because sometimes it's nice to hear people's questions about what might be happening specifically for them. So, Danny, did you have any questions? Catherine, you guys have any questions?
I didn't, just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'll see you guys in October. Like I said, if you want to check out our old office hours sessions, you can check them out on YouTube. All right, you guys have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you so much.